Today, we're going to talk about something that most of us just do without a second thought, right? Hopping on a bus or grabbing a taxi. But what happens if that simple journey here in Scotland goes completely wrong? What are your legal rights? Well, let's break it all down.
First things first, let's just start by saying our public transport system is, incredibly safe. Millions upon millions of journeys happen every single day from the middle of Glasgow out to the Highlands without a single problem.
But this is about those rare moments when things don't go to plan. An accident happens, maybe you're injured, and all of a sudden you're left thinking, what now? What are my rights in a situation like this?
And that brings us to a really fundamental legal idea. See, when you step onto a bus or get into a taxi, you're doing a lot more than just catching a ride. You're actually entering into what the law views as a contract for safe passage.
This all comes down to a key legal principle: passenger carrier liability. So what does that actually mean? Well, in simple terms, the company you're paying has a formal legal duty to take reasonable steps to get you where you're going safely. This isn't just, a nice courtesy. It's a core part of the service they're providing.
And what's really interesting here is how your rights are kind of doubly protected. On the one hand, you've got the general duty of care that really every single driver on the road owes to everybody else. But then, on top of that, the Consumer Rights Act adds this whole other specific layer, demanding that the service is delivered with professional care and skill. It's like a 1-2 punch of legal protection.
Okay, so that's the legal theory. But how does this all play out in the real world? Let's have a look at a couple of the most common scenarios where these legal duties can actually be broken.
So here's a classic example. A bus suddenly slams on its brakes and passengers get thrown around and injured. But the question is, was the driver at fault? Well, the legal test is crucial here. If a pedestrian suddenly steps out into the road, that's a genuine emergency. But if the driver had to brake that hard just because they were following the car in front way too closely, well, that's often seen as negligent and totally avoidable.
And here's another incident that happens all too often. Let's just walk through it. Imagine an older person, or maybe someone carrying heavy shopping, gets on the bus. Before they even have a chance to get to a seat or grab onto a handrail, the bus just accelerates and pulls away. And bam, they're thrown to the floor. That sequence of events, that's a textbook example of a potential breach of that duty of care.
And look, this isn't just a friendly suggestion. It's an explicit rule. The Highway Code couldn't be clearer on this point. It says a driver has a specific obligation to wait. That one little rule makes the case in these types of incidents incredibly strong.
So, if something like this happens, how is it investigated? How do you prove it? Well, this brings us to what you could call the investigator's toolkit. And this is where claims involving commercial vehicles are really, really different from a typical private car crash. See, unlike a regular car, a modern bus or taxi is basically a treasure trove of evidence. You've got CCTV cameras showing exactly what happened, both inside and outside. You've got tachographers that record speed and driver hours. You've got maintenance logs, driver training records. All of this is objective data that can prove what really happened.
But, and this is the absolutely crucial point about all that evidence, that vital CCTV footage is not kept forever. Nope. Most operators will just record over it within about 2 weeks to a month. So acting fast isn't just a good idea. It is absolutely essential.
Okay, so knowing all of that, what should you actually do if this happens to you? Let's walk through the practical, step-by-step path to making a claim.
It really just comes down to these 4 clear actions. First, make sure the incident is officially reported, right there and then, to the driver and the company. Second, please, go get any injuries checked out by a doctor. Third, and this is so critical, you immediately need to ask the operator in writing to preserve all of that CCTV footage. And finally, get advice from a solicitor who really specializes in these exact types of cases.
So what's the bottom line in all this? Well, when you boil it all down, your most powerful tool through this entire process is actually pretty simple. It's just knowing and understanding what your rights are. You have to remember, the law holds professional drivers to a higher standard than the rest of us for a very good reason. They're licensed pros, they're paid to get us places safely, and that job comes with a much greater degree of responsibility.
So remember this, your safe passage on public transport, that's a fundamental legal right. It is not a privilege that you just have to cross your fingers and hope for. Understanding that right is the first, most important step. So the final question is, are you prepared to enforce it?